My garden is full of all kinds of productive and ornamental plants, many of which are difficult to find in a nursery. But they don't just lounge around growing. This is a working garden, and sharing is a big part of gardening. It's something we can all do, and that's why I'm going to show you some different ways to share your plants. First up, dividing plants. This is the simplest way to share plants because it's simply a matter of splitting a plant up into parts. Now this is Mexican tarragon. It's a wonderful aromatic herb, but it has a very loose habit, and as branches flop down, they take root. This is the mother plant, and these are two plants that it's provided for me. So I'm now going to sever them from the mother plant, and to do that, sometimes you can use secateurs, but this requires a spade. Try and remove as much root as possible. And look at that. Now, if you're going to share this with a neighbour, all you need to do is put it into a bucket with some dilute seaweed solution, which stops it from dehydrating and suffering transplant shock. And it'll be fine like this for half a day. But if you want to pot it straight up, that's also fine. Just stand the pot in a saucer of water so it has plenty of moisture during the first few days as it recovers from being transplanted. And that's it. Next, taking and storing cuttings. Taking cuttings is a classic way of cloning a plant. You remove a piece of it and then grow it on as a separate individual. This is variegated cassava. You can cook the leaves and you can cook the roots. It's also very ornamental. Before I take cuttings, I water it the night before. Then, when the temperature is lowest the next morning, I take cuttings using a sharp, sterilised pruning saw. I'm also taking a cutting from a coleus, and like the cassava, I've watered it the night before and I'm using sharp, sterilised secateurs. Always take cuttings when conditions are cool. Once you have all the cuttings, all you need to do is remove the basal leaves to reduce water loss from evaporation. Wrap the entire cutting in newspaper. The newspaper doesn't need to be wet because the plant will sweat or transpire and release enough water to stay moist. Adding extra water will only cause fungal decay to take hold. Place the wrapped cutting into a Ziploc plastic bag and seal. Now the cassava is so much easier because with cassava you only want the old grey wood. This will make really good cuttings. So this is where you make your first cut, and we don't need that at all. Cassava is cut into finger-length sections. You don't need to use plastic. Wrapping them in newspaper is all they need. These cuttings do need to dry for a few days before they go into the ground. So if you mail these, they'll be ready on arrival. Sending plants in the mail. It's a great way to share plants long distance, but before you do put anything into the post, check, because there may be restrictions, such as never attempt to import plant material from overseas. Make sure the plant you're sending is not an environmental weed in its intended destination. And always check the Australian Interstate Quarantine website. Western Australia and Tasmania in particular have very strict bans in place. Check the website for more information. I'm sending these burn jelly plants. Now, when they're in transit, they'll be without water, in the dark, and they'll be bumped around a lot. So it's important to pack them well to give them the best chance of survival. Ensure it's well rooted in its pot. This will help to contain the potting mix in place for the plant's roots. Place packing tape over the top of the pot to stop the potting mix falling out. Use scrunched up newspaper to hold the plant in place in the bottom of the mailing box. Tape the pot to the inside of the box to stop the pot moving around and crushing the plant. Always send it on a Monday. This will give a maximum number of mail days for the postal service to get your plant to its destination. If you mail later in the week, you run the risk of it sitting around waiting, which will add to its stress. When you receive a plant from the mail, it's probably lost some of its potting mix. So top dress it and fill it up, and then give it a good drink. The plants have been in a box, so it's important that they get out into some fresh air, but don't put them out immediately in full sun. Put them under a tree or somewhere where they can receive dappled shade. Gardening is all about sharing, so why not divide a plant, take a cutting, even pop it in the post and share your love of gardening with friends and family.